The unwanted visitor. Jack Carter leaned back in his rickety chair, sipping on a cold soda while staring up at the stars. It was his usual evening routine after a long day fixing old cars in his workshop. The air was calm, the kind of night where nothing ever seemed to happen, or so he thought. A low hum broke through the silence, growing louder by the second. Jack frowned and glanced around. It wasn't the sound of a car or a plane. It was something different, something strange. The ground began to vibrate beneath him. His drink slipped from his hand and clattered onto the wooden porch as a blinding light filled the sky. "What the hell?" Jack muttered, shielding his eyes. Before he could process what was happening, a massive, sleek ship descended from the sky, landing silently in the field behind his house. It looked like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, metallic, glowing with blue veins, and completely alien. Jack froze, his mind racing. Was this a dream? Or had he lost his mind? The ship's underside opened, releasing a ramp that extended to the ground. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as three towering figures emerged, their forms backlit by the ship's eerie glow. They were over 7 feet tall, with shimmering silver armor and helmets that obscured their faces. In their hands, they held long, spear-like weapons that crackled with energy. Jack wanted to run, but his legs felt like lead. He stood rooted to the spot as the figures approached. The lead alien removed their helmet, revealing a face that was oddly human, but with a faint metallic sheen. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their expression was cold and unyielding. "Jack Carter of Earth," the alien said, their voice deep and resonating like a drumbeat. "You have been chosen." "Chosen?" Jack finally found his voice, though it wavered. "Chosen for what? And who the hell are you?" The alien ignored his question and gestured to the others. They stepped forward, holding a glowing holographic device. An image appeared, a swirling galaxy with a red dot marking Earth. The image zoomed out, showing multiple planets and an intricate network of connections. Jack's head spun as he tried to make sense of it. "You are to marry the princess of the Zarkonian Empire," the alien said matter-of-factly. "It is a matter of galactic survival." Jack blinked, convinced he had misheard. "Excuse me. Marry? A princess? Look, I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm just a mechanic. I don't do whatever this is." "You are the one," the alien replied, his tone unwavering. "Your DNA matches the prophecy. The union must take place, or your world will face destruction." "Prophecy? DNA? What are you talking about?" Jack took a shaky step back, his mind racing. This has to be a mistake. Another alien pressed a button on the holographic device, and the image shifted to Earth. It showed scenes of devastation, cities in ruins, people fleeing from massive explosions. Jack's stomach twisted as he watched the apocalyptic vision unfold. "This will be the fate of your planet if you refuse," the alien said coldly. "You have 24 hours to decide." Jack's breath came in short gasps. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of elaborate prank or hallucination. But the fear in his gut told him otherwise. These beings were serious, and they weren't giving him a choice. "Why me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why not someone else?" The alien's glowing eyes bore into him. "You are unique. The prophecy is clear. Only you can fulfill it." Jack shook his head, backing away. "I don't care about your prophecy. I'm not marrying some alien princess, and I'm definitely not saving the galaxy. Find someone else." The lead alien raised his weapon, and Jack flinched. But instead of attacking, the alien pointed it at the ground. A beam of light shot out, burning the symbol into the dirt. It was an intricate design, glowing faintly with an otherworldly energy. "This mark binds you to the decision," the alien said. "We will return tomorrow for your answer. Choose wisely." Before Jack could respond, the aliens turned and marched back into their ship. The ramp retracted, and the ship rose silently into the sky, disappearing into the stars as quickly as it had appeared. Jack stood there, his mind racing. His quiet life had just been turned upside down, and he had no idea what to do. Marry an alien princess, save the galaxy. It all sounded insane, but the image of Earth's destruction was burned into his mind. What if they were telling the truth? As he stared at the glowing symbol in the dirt, Jack knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same again. The Princess and the Ultimatum. Jack Carter woke up the next morning feeling like he had dreamed the entire encounter. But as he stumbled out of bed and stepped outside, his heart sank. The glowing symbol burned into the ground was still there, faintly pulsing like a living thing. He rubbed his temples, hoping the aliens wouldn't actually return. His hope was short-lived. The air shimmered, and a low hum filled the atmosphere. Before Jack could even think about running, the same sleek alien ship appeared, descending from the clouds. He cursed under his breath, his fists clenched. This time, the ramp lowered with an air of finality, and the lead alien from the previous night stepped out. "Jack Carter," the alien intoned. "Your decision." "I didn't ask for this," Jack snapped, frustration overpowering his fear. "You can't just barge into my life and tell me to marry some alien princess because of a prophecy. That's not how things work here." The alien tilted his head, as though Jack were a particularly slow child. "Your refusal would doom your world. This is not a negotiation." "Yeah, well, maybe I'd like some actual answers before I agree to anything," Jack shot back. "Who even is this princess? And why am I so damn important?" The alien paused, then gestured toward the ship. "You will meet her. Perhaps then you will understand." Before Jack could protest, two other aliens flanked him and guided him up the ramp. The interior of the ship was just as otherworldly as the exterior. Gleaming walls, faint blue lights, and a hum that seemed to vibrate through Jack's bones. He barely had time to marvel before they led him into a grand chamber. At the center of the room stood the princess. Jack's first thought was that she didn't look like what he'd expected. Lyrana, as she introduced herself, was tall and regal, her skin a pale silver that shimmered like moonlight. Her eyes were a deep violet, glowing faintly in the dim light. She wore an elaborate gown adorned with what looked like moving constellations. Despite her alien appearance, there was an undeniable human quality to her features. But the moment she opened her mouth, Jack's initial awe vanished. "You're the human they brought to me," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "This is ridiculous." "Believe me, lady, I'm not exactly thrilled about this either," Jack shot back, crossing his arms. Lyrana raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "I am Princess Lyrana of the Zarkonian Empire. My bloodline is ancient and powerful. And you are a primitive mechanic from a backwater planet. Why my family believes you are worthy of me is beyond comprehension." "Hey, I didn't ask for this," Jack retorted. "Your family dragged me into this mess. Maybe you should take it up with them." The tension in the room was palpable. The lead alien, who had introduced himself as General Thrax, stepped between them. "This union is not about personal preference. It is about duty. The prophecy." "I don't care about your prophecy," Lyrana interrupted, glaring at Thrax. "I am not marrying him." Jack smirked. "Well, at least we agree on something." Thrax's glowing eyes narrowed. "Enough. Both of you will listen." He pressed a button on his wrist, and a hologram appeared in the air. It displayed a massive star chart, highlighting planets connected by glowing lines. Thrax pointed to one in particular, a dark, shadowy sphere. "The Morphasians," he said, his voice grim. "A rogue faction that threatens the stability of our galaxy. They are growing stronger, and they seek to destroy the Zarkonian Empire. The prophecy foretells that the union of Lyrana and the Chosen One will awaken an ancient power, a force capable of ending the Morphasian threat." "And what does that have to do with me?" Jack asked, his frustration mounting. Thrax turned to him. "Your DNA is unique. It matches the ancient markers left by our ancestors. You are the key to this union." Jack ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. This still sounds like a load of sci-fi nonsense. Lyrana scoffed. For once, I agree with the human. There has to be another way. There is no other way, Thrax said firmly. The prophecy is clear. If you do not unite, the Morphasians will gain the upper hand, and they will not stop with the Zarkonian Empire. Earth will fall as well. Jack looked at Lyrana, who was glaring at Thrax with barely contained fury. So, what happens if we don't go through with this? What if I just say no? Thrax's expression darkened. You saw the visions. Earth will burn. Billions will perish. The choice is yours, Jack Carter, but the consequences will affect your entire species. Jack felt a weight settle on his chest. He wasn't a hero, and he certainly wasn't someone who could save galaxies. But if Thrax was telling the truth, saying no would doom his planet, his family, his friends. I need time to think, he said finally. You have none, Thrax replied. The Morphasians are already on the move. If you refuse, you may as well say goodbye to your world. Jack turned to Lyrana. Well, Princess, any ideas? Her violet eyes softened for a moment before she scoffed. I suppose we both have no choice, human. But don't think for a second that this makes us allies. The room grew silent as Jack processed her words. He didn't trust the Zarkonians, he didn't trust Lyrana, and he certainly didn't trust himself to handle whatever came next. But one thing was clear, his life was no longer his own. Secrets in the stars. The tension in the ship's grand chamber was suffocating as Jack Carter sat across from Princess Lyrana in a smaller, dimly lit room. They had been left alone, apparently to bond. While the Zarkonian officers discussed their next steps, Jack drummed his fingers on the metallic table, the sound echoing in the silence. This is ridiculous, Lyrana muttered, breaking the silence. Her violet eyes glowed faintly as she glared at him. I should be leading my people into battle, not babysitting some clueless earthling. Jack rolled his eyes. Oh, I'm sorry, Princess. Maybe if I'd known I was going to be dragged into some intergalactic drama, I would have brushed up on my alien etiquette. She leaned forward, her silvery hair catching the soft light. Do you even understand what's at stake here? The Morphasians are ruthless. They've destroyed entire civilizations. Do you think your little planet stands a chance if they invade? Look, Jack said, meeting her gaze. I'm just trying to figure out why I'm even here. Why me? What's so special about my DNA that your people think I can stop a galactic war? Lyrana opened her mouth to retort, but the door slid open with a soft hiss before she could speak. General Thrax entered, his expression as cold and unreadable as ever. Your questions will be answered, he said, his deep voice reverberating through the room. Follow me. Jack and Lyrana exchanged a wary glance before standing. Thrax led them through a series of winding corridors, each one lined with glowing panels that seemed to pulse with the ship's energy. Jack couldn't help but feel like he was walking through the veins of some massive living organism. Finally, they entered a circular chamber filled with holographic star maps. The walls were covered in swirling constellations, and the air seemed charged with a faint hum of energy. At the center of the room stood a pedestal holding a small glowing orb. This, Thrax said, gesturing to the orb, is the Celestial Archive. It contains the history and secrets of our galaxy, including the prophecy. Jack crossed his arms. Great. Let's see what this prophecy actually says. Thrax placed his hand on the orb, and the room transformed. The walls melted away, replaced by a vast expanse of stars. A deep, resonant voice filled the air, speaking in an ancient Zarkonian dialect. As it spoke, the stars shifted, forming images of battles, alliances, and ancient civilizations. Thrax translated. Long ago, the Zarkonian Empire faced annihilation at the hands of the Morphasians. Our ancestors discovered a way to create harmony among the stars, a bond between two souls, chosen by fate that would awaken the light of Solara, a power capable of ending any war. The images shifted, showing two figures, one with glowing violet eyes, the other a faceless silhouette. Together, they held a radiant sphere of light that repelled waves of shadowy Morphasian ships. "Let me guess," Jack said, his voice heavy with skepticism. "I'm supposed to be that faceless guy." "Precisely," Thrax replied, his tone devoid of humor. "Your DNA carries markers that match the ancient Zarkonian genetic code. It is a sign that you are the one meant to fulfill this prophecy." Lyrana snorted. "So, you're telling me that some random human from a planet that doesn't even have interstellar travel is my destined partner? This is absurd." "Trust me, I'm not thrilled about it either," Jack muttered. "But let's focus on what's important here. You're saying this Light of Solara thing is real, and it's the only way to stop the Morphasians." Thrax nodded. "The Morphasians are relentless. They do not negotiate. They consume and destroy. Without the light of Solara, the galaxy will fall." Jack stared at the glowing orb, his mind racing. He didn't want to believe any of this. It sounded like something out of one of the sci-fi movies he used to watch as a kid. But the visions, the holograms, and the sheer seriousness of the Zarkonians made it hard to dismiss. "Why can't you just use someone else?" Jack asked. "You've got an entire empire full of people. Why me?" Thrax's expression darkened. "We have tried. Over centuries, we have sought others who matched the genetic markers, but none have succeeded. You are the first in millennia who fulfills all the requirements." Before Jack could respond, the ship's lights dimmed, and a sharp alarm blared. Thrax stiffened, his hand flying to his weapon. A voice crackled over the intercom in Zarkonian, and Lyrana's eyes widened. "What's going on?" Jack asked, his heart pounding. Thrax turned to him, his expression grim. "The Morphasians have found us." The holographic stars around them disappeared, replaced by a tactical map showing a swarm of ships approaching at an alarming speed. Jack's stomach dropped as he saw the sheer size of the enemy fleet. "We must act quickly," Thrax said. "If they capture you, the consequences will be catastrophic." Jack backed away, panic rising in his chest. "Wait, what do you mean capture me? Why would they want me?" Lyrana stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Because you're not just the key to stopping them. You're also the key to their ultimate weapon." Jack's mind reeled as the alarms grew louder. The walls shuddered, and the faint hum of the ship's engines turned into a deafening roar. Whatever was happening, it was clear that his quiet, simple life was over, and he was in far deeper trouble than he could have ever imagined. The rogue faction's offer. The Zarkonian ship shuddered violently as alarms blared throughout its halls. Jack stumbled, grabbing onto the nearest wall for support as the ship's lights flickered ominously. Lyrana, far more accustomed to chaos, remained steady on her feet, her violet eyes scanning the tactical hologram that hovered in the air. "We're under attack," she muttered, her voice tight with frustration. "The Morphasians found us faster than I expected." Jack's heart raced. What do they want with me? Why am I suddenly the galaxy's most wanted mechanic? Lyrana shot him a glare. "I told you, they think you're the key to their ultimate weapon. They'll either use you or kill you." "Great," Jack muttered, the sarcasm failing to mask his growing fear. "Just what I needed today." Before Lyrana could respond, the ship jolted again, and General Thrax's voice boomed through the comms. "All personnel, prepare for boarding. Defend the human at all costs." "Defend me," Jack laughed nervously. "I thought I was the key to saving the galaxy. Doesn't sound like you're doing a great job of keeping me safe." "You're welcome to step outside and try your luck with the Morphasians," Lyrana snapped, grabbing a weapon from a nearby wall panel and handing one to him. "Here, try not to shoot yourself." "I'm a mechanic, not a soldier," Jack protested, staring at the alien weapon in his hands. It hummed with a strange energy, the barrel glowing faintly blue. "Then learn quickly," she replied, her voice icy. The ship's hull groaned under the pressure of an impact, and moments later, The sounds of shouting and weapon fire echoed down the corridors. Jack's stomach churned as the battle closed in. Before they could join the fight, the room was plunged into darkness. The hum of the ship's systems faded, replaced by an eerie silence. "What just happened?" Jack whispered. "Power's been cut," Lyrana said, her voice low. "They've breached the core." A sudden flash of light blinded them as a section of the wall disintegrated. Jack raised his arm to shield his face, coughing as smoke and debris filled the air. When he lowered it, he found himself staring at a group of unfamiliar aliens. These weren't the tall, armored Zarkonians. These beings were sleeker, with dark, chitinous exoskeletons and piercing red eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. The leader stepped forward, holding up a hand. "Stand down. We're not here to kill you." "Could have fooled me," Jack muttered, gripping his weapon tightly. The alien ignored him, turning its gaze to Lyrana. "Princess, we mean you no harm. Our quarrel is with your empire, not you." "Speak quickly," she replied coldly, raising her weapon. "You have 30 seconds before I shoot." The alien leader smirked, a strange, unsettling expression. "Very well. My name is Tark, commander of the Morphasian Liberation Front. We've come for the human." Jack tensed. "Me? Why does everyone want me?" "Because you're more valuable than you realize," Sark said, his tone almost sympathetic. "You've been told you're the key to some ancient prophecy, haven't you?" Jack nodded cautiously. "Yeah, something about saving the galaxy." Sark chuckled darkly. "The Zarkonians love their fairy tales. What they didn't tell you is that their precious light of Solera isn't just a power for peace. It's also the most devastating weapon the galaxy has ever known. And you're the key to activating it." Jack's grip tightened on his weapon. "So what? You want to use me to destroy them?" Sark shook his head. "No, we want to destroy the weapon before it can be used at all. The Zarkonians claim to be protectors of the galaxy, but they've used their power to dominate and oppress for centuries. The Morphasians are fighting for freedom, for balance." "Freedom?" Lyrana scoffed. "You've annihilated entire worlds. Don't act like you're noble." Sark's eyes narrowed. "We do what is necessary to survive, but we're not here to debate morality. We're offering Jack a choice." Jack blinked. "A choice?" "Yes," Sark said. "Come with us. Help us destroy the weapon and end the Zarkonian Empire's tyranny. In return, we'll ensure your safety and your planet's freedom. Stay with them, and you'll be nothing more than a pawn in their games." Lyrana stepped forward, her weapon aimed directly at Sark. "Don't listen to him. The Morphasians would tear Earth apart the moment it became inconvenient for them. And your empire wouldn't." Sark shot back. "At least we're honest about our intentions." Jack felt a headache forming as the two argued. He didn't trust the Zarkonians, but the Morphasians didn't seem much better. Both sides were using him as a pawn in a war he barely understood, and he was running out of time to figure out who, if anyone, he could trust. "Enough," he shouted, cutting through their bickering. "I didn't ask to be part of your galactic soap opera, but here I am. If you both want me so badly, maybe you should start by telling me the truth. The whole truth." Sark hesitated, then nodded. "Very well, but not here. Our fleet is waiting just outside the system. Come with us, and we'll show you the Zarkonians' true nature." "Jack, don't," Lyrana warned, stepping closer to him. "You don't know what they'll do." "And I don't know what you'll do either," he replied, his voice heavy with frustration. "But I'm tired of being in the dark." The room fell silent as Jack weighed his options. Whatever he chose, he knew one thing for sure. His next move would determine not just his fate, but the fate of the entire galaxy. The Princess' Secret. Jack Carter sat in the dimly lit brig of the Zarkonian ship, staring at the alien walls that pulsed faintly with a life of their own. He was still reeling from the confrontation with Tark and the Morphasians. Somehow, he had ended up back with the Zarkonians after refusing Sark's offer to go with them. It wasn't because he trusted Lyrana or her empire. It was because he trusted Axark even less. The door to the brig slid open with a soft hiss, and Lyrana stepped inside. She didn't look her usual composed self. Her silvery hair was slightly disheveled, and there was a flicker of something unfamiliar in her glowing violet eyes. Guilt, perhaps. Jack wasn't sure. "Come to gloat?" Jack asked, leaning back against the wall. "Or maybe to remind me that I'm just a primitive human who has no idea what's going on." Lyrana ignored his sarcasm and sat on the opposite bench, her gaze fixed on the floor. For a moment, she said nothing, and the silence stretched between them like a taut wire. "I owe you an explanation," she said finally, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. Jack raised an eyebrow. "Wow, a princess apologizing. I didn't think your royal ego would allow it." She shot him a glare, but it lacked her usual venom. "This isn't easy for me, so maybe don't make it harder." "Fine," Jack said, waving a hand. "I'm all ears." Lyrana took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Everything they've told you about the prophecy, the light of Solara, and your DNA, it's true. But there's more to the story. Things my family doesn't want you to know." "Shocking," Jack said dryly. "Please, tell me how this gets worse." She hesitated, as if weighing how much to say. "The light of Solara isn't just a weapon or a source of peace. It's both. It amplifies the will of its wielders. If the bond between them is pure, built on trust, understanding, and love, it creates harmony. But if the bond is fractured or driven by selfish motives, it becomes something else. Something dangerous." Jack frowned. "Dangerous how?" "It destroys," Lyrana said simply. "Entire systems. The last time it was activated, it wiped out 3 civilizations before it was stopped." Jack's blood ran cold. "And you thought this was a good idea to bring back?" "It wasn't my idea," Lyrana snapped, her voice cracking slightly. She took another deep breath, regaining her composure. "This was my father's plan. He believes the prophecy is the key to solidifying the Zarkonian Empire's dominance. He doesn't care about peace. He wants power." Jack stared at her, trying to process her words. "So what, you're just going along with it? Playing the dutiful daughter?" Her jaw tightened. "I don't have a choice. If I refuse, he'll have me executed for treason. And if I fail to convince you to bond with me, Earth will still be destroyed. If not by the Morphasians, then by my father's wrath." Jack shook his head, disbelief etched across his face. "This is insane. You're telling me I'm supposed to marry you, trust you, maybe even fall in love with you, or risk turning into some galaxy-destroying weapon?" Lyrana looked away, her expression pained. "I never said it was fair." "Fair?" Jack laughed bitterly. "None of this is fair. I'm just a guy who fixes cars, and now I'm supposed to save the galaxy. And you, why are you even telling me this? What do you want from me?" Her gaze snapped back to him, and for the first time, Jack saw raw honesty in her eyes. "I want you to help me stop this. To stop them. I don't want to be part of my father's plans, and I don't want to see you or your world destroyed. But I can't do it alone." Jack leaned forward, his voice low. "How do I know I can trust you? You've spent the last 2 days treating me like dirt. What's changed?" Lyrana hesitated again, then reached into her sleeve and pulled out a small glowing crystal. She held it out to him. "What's this?" he asked. "It's a recording," she said. "Proof of my father's real intentions. He doesn't just want to stop the Morphasians. He wants to wipe them out entirely and claim their territory. This isn't about peace or balance. It's about conquest." Jack took the crystal, studying it. "And you think this will help us stop him?" "It's a start," Lyrana said. "But we need more. The Celestial Archive, the artifact you saw earlier, it has records of the light of Solara's creation and its weaknesses. If we can access it, we might be able to destroy the weapon before it's activated." Jack rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of her words. "You're asking me to betray your entire empire, your family, and trust you, a princess who, 2 hours ago, would have gladly thrown me to the wolves." "Yes," she said simply, "because if we don't stop them, you won't just lose Earth. I'll lose everything too." The room fell silent as Jack considered her plea. He didn't trust her, not entirely, but something in her voice, an edge of desperation, of sincerity, made him pause. For the first time, he saw her not as an untouchable alien princess, but as someone just as trapped as he was. "Fine," he said at last. "But if you screw me over, I swear." "I won't," Lyrana interrupted, her tone firm. "We're in this together now." Jack leaned back, exhaling deeply. Great. Just another day in the life of Jack Carter, intergalactic mechanic/reluctant hero. Lyrana almost smiled. "Let's hope you're as good at fixing this mess as you are at fixing cars." As the ship trembled again, the weight of their alliance settled heavily on Jack's shoulders. He didn't know if he could trust Lyrana, but for now, she was his best, and only, hope. Race against time. The Zarkonian starship hurtled through the void of space, its sleek form weaving through asteroid fields and the remnants of ancient battles. Jack Carter sat in the co-pilot seat of a smaller shuttle, his knuckles white, as he gripped the controls. Beside him, Princess Lyrana navigated the ship's intricate systems with the ease of someone born into the stars. "Are you sure about this plan?" Jack asked, his voice tight, as the shuttle narrowly avoided a spiraling piece of debris. "It's not a plan. It's survival," Lyrana replied curtly. "If we don't reach the Celestial Archive before my father's fleet does, this will all be for nothing." Jack bit back a retort, his eyes flicking to the holographic map hovering in front of them. The archive was located on a remote forbidden moon, hidden within the ruins of an ancient Zarkonian temple. According to Lyrana, the temple held the secrets of the light of Solara, secrets that could potentially stop the weapon from ever being activated. But the journey was far from straightforward. Behind them, the Zarkonian flagship was in pursuit, its glowing cannons ready to obliterate them. Jack couldn't shake the image of General Thrax's cold, unyielding stare as he had ordered their capture. Lyrana's defection had branded her a traitor, and Jack, he was nothing more than collateral damage. The shuttle jolted as an energy blast skimmed their hull, the shields flickering under the impact. "Can you fly any faster?" Jack shouted, gripping the console for balance. "Do you want to fly?" Lyrana snapped, her hands darting across the controls. "Because I can happily let you take over." "Pass," Jack muttered, his stomach flipping as the shuttle performed a sharp dive to avoid another blast. The comms crackled to life, and a familiar, icy voice filled the cockpit. "Princess Lyrana. Jack Carter. Stand down and return to the flagship. This is your final warning." "Thrax," Lyrana hissed, her jaw tightening. Jack leaned forward, glaring at the comms panel. "Final warning. Pretty sure you skipped straight to shoot to kill." "Your actions are reckless," Thrax continued, ignoring Jack. "You are jeopardizing the future of the Zarkonian Empire and the safety of Earth. Return now, and we may yet find a peaceful resolution." "Peaceful?" Lyrana scoffed, switching off the comms. "He'd execute us both the moment we stepped on board." Jack frowned. "He's not wrong about one thing, though. If we screw this up, Earth's toast." Lyrana didn't reply, her focus locked on the holographic map. The archive was less than a light year away, but the flagship was gaining on them. Jack could see its glowing cannons charging again, preparing for another assault. "Hang on," Lyrana said suddenly, yanking the controls. The shuttle veered sharply, diving into a dense asteroid field. Jack's heart leaped into his throat as they weaved through the massive rocks, some spinning dangerously close to the ship's fragile hull. "This is insane," he yelled. "Do you want to live?" Lyrana shot back, her hand steady on the controls. "Then shut up and let me fly." Behind them, the flagship hesitated at the edge of the asteroid field. Its bulk made maneuvering through such treacherous terrain nearly impossible. Jack exhaled in relief as the distance between them grew. "We lost them," he said, slumping back in his seat. "For now," Lyrana said grimly. "But they'll find us again. We need to move fast." The shuttle emerged from the asteroid field and sped toward the desolate moon that housed the Celestial Archive. From orbit, the moon looked like a barren wasteland, its surface scarred by ancient battles. But as they descended, Jack saw the outlines of massive structures buried in the dust, ruins of a once great civilization. The shuttle landed with a jarring thud, and the engines powered down. Lyrana unbuckled her harness and stood, grabbing a sleek alien rifle from a nearby rack. "Stay close," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Jack followed her down the ramp, his boots crunching on the moon's dusty surface. The air was thin but breathable, and the sky above was a swirling mix of gray and purple clouds. The entrance to the temple loomed ahead, a massive arched doorway carved into the side of a jagged cliff. "Let me guess," Jack said, eyeing the ominous structure. "There's going to be traps." "Of course," Lyrana replied, stepping toward the doorway. "This is an ancient Zarkonian temple, not a tourist attraction." They entered cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the vast, empty halls. The walls were covered in glowing glyphs, their light casting eerie shadows. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Do you know where we're going?" he asked. "The heart of the temple," Lyrana said. "That's where the archive is kept." As they moved deeper into the temple, the air grew colder, and the glow of the glyphs intensified. Jack's unease grew with each step. He wasn't sure if it was the temple itself or the knowledge of what awaited them that made his skin crawl. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. At its center was a pedestal, and on it rested a glowing orb, the Celestial Archive. The air hummed with energy, and Jack felt a strange pull, as if the orb were calling to him. "This is it," Lyrana said, stepping toward the pedestal. Before she could touch the orb, a low growl echoed through the chamber. Jack spun around, his heart pounding, as shadowy figures emerged from the darkness. They were Morphasians, their red eyes glowing like embers. "You should not have come here," one of them hissed. Lyrana raised her weapon, her expression hard. "We're taking the archive. Try and stop us." Jack groaned, raising his own weapon. "Why does everything always end with someone trying to kill me?" The chamber erupted into chaos as the Morphasians charged. Jack fired blindly, the alien weapon humming in his hands. The battle was brutal, and the stakes had never felt higher. The fate of the galaxy rested on the glowing orb at the center of the room, and on Jack's ability to survive long enough to reach it. The final choice. The air in the temple chamber crackled with tension as Jack Carter stood at the pedestal, the glowing orb of the Celestial Archive hovering inches from his hands. Around him, the battle rage. Lyrana fired precision shots at the Morphasians who darted through the shadows, their red eyes glowing with malevolent intent. "This isn't going to hold them off forever," she shouted, her voice tight with urgency. "Whatever you're going to do, do it now." Jack stared at the orb, its light pulsing faintly as if alive. His reflection shimmered on its surface, distorted by the energy within. Somewhere deep inside, he knew that touching the orb would set off a chain of events he couldn't control. It could save the galaxy, or destroy it. "What if I mess this up?" he muttered under his breath. "You won't," Lyrana replied, though her voice wavered slightly. "You can't." Her confidence didn't reassure him. Jack wasn't a hero. He was a mechanic from Earth who fixed broken things, not someone who saved worlds. But here he was, with the fate of the galaxy resting squarely on his shoulders. "Jack," Lyrana's voice cut through his thoughts. "Do it. Now." Before he could act, the chamber shook violently. The walls began to crack, sending chunks of stone crashing to the floor. A massive figure stepped into the room. General Thrax, his glowing eyes blazing with fury. Behind him, Zarkonian soldiers poured in, weapons raised. Lyrana, Thrax bellowed, his voice echoing like thunder. Step away from the human. This ends now. Not a chance. She shouted back, firing a shot that forced him to duck behind a column. Thrax turned his gaze to Jack, his expression cold and calculating. Jack Carter, listen to me. The princess has poisoned your mind with lies. The light of Solera is not a weapon. It is a tool for unity, for peace. If you activate it with her, you will doom us all. Jack's grip on the pedestal tightened. You mean doom you? I know what you're planning, Thrax. Lyrana told me everything. Thrax's face darkened. You're a fool to trust her. She's a traitor to her people and a danger to the galaxy. Funny. Jack shot back. I could say the same about you. Thrax raised his weapon, aiming directly at Jack. Step away from the archive, or I will end this myself. Lyrana moved between them, her weapon trained on Thrax. If you want him, you'll have to go through me. The standoff was unbearable. Jack could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He glanced at Lyrana, her defiance unwavering, and then at Thrax, whose determination was just as fierce. Both of them believed they were right, and both were counting on him to make the choice. Enough. Sark's voice suddenly boomed as he and the remaining Morphasians stepped forward, their presence forcing a tense pause in the battle. This isn't about Zarkonian politics or human ignorance. The light of Solera is a force that no one should wield, not the Zarkonians, not the Morphasians, and certainly not an untested human. Jack turned to Sark, confusion etched across his face. Then what do you suggest? Just let it sit here and hope no one ever finds it. Sark's red eyes glimmered. Destroy it. End this cycle of war and power. That is the only way to ensure the galaxy's survival. Jack stared at the orb, his thoughts racing. Each faction had its own agenda, its own vision for the future. The Zarkonians wanted control. The Morphasians wanted revenge. And Lyrana, she wanted freedom, not just for herself, but for everyone caught in this endless war. You're running out of time, Jack. Lyrana shouted, her voice breaking under the strain. The ground beneath them began to quake, cracks spidering through the floor as the temple started to collapse. Jack realized he had no more time to debate, no more room for hesitation. He had to choose. The final moment. Jack took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the orb. He could feel its energy pulsing through him, a strange mixture of warmth and cold. The voices around him blurred as he focused on what truly mattered. Option 1. Unite with Lyrana. He could trust her, take a leap of faith, and activate the light of Solera with her. Together, they might forge a new path for the galaxy, one built on balance and understanding. But it was a gamble. If their bond wasn't strong enough, the power could spiral out of control. Option 2. Destroy the orb. He could listen to Sark and end the cycle of violence by shattering the orb. It would mean sacrificing the potential for peace, but it would also eliminate the threat of absolute destruction. Option 3. Surrender to Thrax. He could let Thrax take the orb, hoping that the Zarkonians' promises of peace were genuine. It was the safest choice in the moment, but it came with the risk of tyranny and oppression under Zarkonian rule. Jack's hand clenched into a fist as he made his decision. I'm sorry, he muttered, his voice barely audible. With a sudden burst of resolve, he placed his palm on the orb. The aftermath. The room erupted in a blinding light, engulfing everything in its radiant glow. Jack felt a surge of energy flood through him, a strange, indescribable connection to something vast and ancient. Time seemed to freeze as the orb responded to his choice. When the light faded, the chamber was silent. The walls were scorched, the soldiers stunned. Lyrana knelt beside Jack, her eyes wide with awe, or fear. What did you do?" she whispered. Jack's voice was calm, yet resolute. "I made a choice. Now let's see if it was the right one." As the temple began to collapse, Jack and Lyrana fled, leaving the others behind. Whether they had saved the galaxy or doomed it, only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Jack's life and the galaxy would never be the same.